Hello, my name is Carl Surrey and this is a video tutorial for two Facebook groups, Fans of Serif Software and the Affinity Designer and Photo group. Welcome to this Affinity Photo tutorial where I'm going to show you how to alter this image which I got from Pixabay.com into this image here where there's some flames on the sword. Now obviously you don't need to add flames to a sword or any other similar weapon, but I mean you could add the flames to anything you like, but I'm adapting a Photoshop tutorial where they added the flames to the sword. Now the difference is in the Photoshop tutorial they used a feature that is in Photoshop, which is a render filter, which that will make them flame images, but it's not something we have in Affinity Photo. So I needed to adapt slightly and get some flame brush tips instead. Now you will need to find some flame brush tips, and the ones I found was on the DeviantArt website, and they are made by Red Headstock, and also I think it's called obsidiandawn.com, which I think is one of the same people. So you get 16 flame brushes for free as long as you credit them if you use them. So I will add the link to this web page so you can download the brushes, and even if you never use them in this particular project you may use them at some future date. All you need to do is click on the download button. It will download a zip file. You just need to extract that zip file and install them into Affinity Photo and indeed into Affinity Designer. So I'm going to assume that you have downloaded those flame brushes. So I'm going to go back to this start image. I couldn't find that many good pictures of people holding swords that I could use. This was the best I could find, and as it was a double-edged sword I decided to add flames to both sides, whereas in the Photoshop tutorial I was following, they only had the one bladed sword, so they only had to do it the once. So the first thing we need to do is to add a new blank layer, which is this icon down here. Just click on that. So we'll add the blank layer, and then we want to come to the brush tool, which is there, or you can just press B on the keyboard and find the installed brushes, which is called SS Flames. I'm just going to select one at random at the moment, and then I'm going to come back to the color, and we want a sort of a flame color. Now you can either do this in RGB or you can do it in hex. The color, I'm going to do this in RGB because I find that easier personally than hex codes. So it's 255 in the red, 213 in the green, and 63 in the blue, which the hex code is FFD53F. Right, so now they have a sort of a yellowy flame colour. I'll go back to the brushes and I will select one of these flames. That's probably a bit big at the moment, and reduce the size of that. And if we put a couple of those in like that, and then come and pick a different one. What's this one? I'm just doing a rough guess on the length of the blade of the sword. That's a bit too big. Let's try this one here. Let's try that one there. Right, so once I'm happy with that, I will come to the move tool and it will put the bounding box around the flames here, and then I'm just going to move and rotate them if it stays still long enough, and just move that onto the blade. Yeah, that's not too bad. Yes, I like that. That's that one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the blending mode of this from normal to overlay. I'm then going to duplicate that layer, and I'm going to change the blending mode of this duplicated layer to screen. I always lose it. And I'm just going to lower the opacity of that screen layer just slightly down to about 75%. And then I'm going to hold down the control button and click on this so both of these layers are highlighted, and I'm going to group those together. So that is now that first blade with some flames on it. So I'm then going to add another pixel layer, come back to my brush tool, and I'm going to sort of do a similar thing with the other end. This is going to be slightly harder in the sense because I'm going to sort of try and visualize what this will look like once I rotate it a bit. Let's try that one. Reduce that size. Right, I think that'll do for now. I'll come to the move tool, rotate that round, and then just roughly get that where I want it. Let's try about there. Yes, I think that will do for there. So much like in the previous one, I will change this to overlay, duplicate it, change this one to screen, drop down the screen opacity to about 75%, and then highlight both those layers and group them together. So they are now locked as a group. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just reset the brushes back to their basics, and I'm also going to reset the colors back to white and black. I have previously set up a keyboard shortcut that would do that for me, but if not, if you haven't got that done, you'll have to sort of do that manually, so they're back to black and white. Right, so I'm going to click on the first group, which is the lower blade here, and I'm going to add a layer mask to that group. Come to the brush tool, select a brush, and I'm going to make the colour, well, the colour is black. I'm going to have the hardness down to 0. I am going to lower the opacity as well down to about 50%, and I'm going to just make sure it is the layer mask I'm painting on, and I'm just going to paint over any excess areas of the flame that you don't want to be shown. Now in the Photoshop tutorial they did it so the whole blade was visible, but I quite like the fact that it looks like it's coming in and around the blade of the sword. Yes, I think I like that one there. So come to the other group, add a layer mask. Now this one is not quite as effective as the bottom layer, so I'm going to paint black onto this layer mask to reveal a bit more of the blade than the bottom half was. Right, and also this bit around the bush here, I don't think that works so well. In fact, what I will do is I think I'll come to a texture brush and just sort of use those textures to help break that up a bit, rather than being such a straightforward flame brush circle, if you see what I mean. Right, that's not quite as good as that one there, but it'll do for the purposes of this video. You can take a bit more time over this than I can in this particular video. Right, what you can also do is you open up one of these groups here and select one of the pixel layers. If you come to the liquify persona and select the forward push tool, and what I'll do is I'll lower the brush size quite considerably, and then just click and push some of these flames out a bit further. Might increase the size a bit there, and then if you're happy, just click apply, and you could do the same with the other layer within that group. And then repeat the process with the other set of flames. Select one of the layers, come to the liquify persona, and just add a bit of shape to them, click apply, and then our final section, come to liquify, Right, right, I'm quite fairly happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is click on the top layer and add a new pixel layer, and to this I'm going to add a gradient. So I'll click on the gradient tool, and I want to sort of come from the middle of the flames to somewhere either outside the picture but quite away from where this lady's face is. And then I'm going to change the blending mode to overlay, and then I'm going to change the colors of the ends of this gradient, and I'm going to start with the area that's in the flames, and I'm going to make this a sort of an orange color. This time I'll use the hex, and the hex for this is FCB991. But if you want to use the RGB slider, it's 252, 185, 145. And then I'm going to click on the node at the other end, and I'm going to set that to black, which is basically 000. And then I can move the midpoint slider to wherever you want. So basically I want to sort of have a darker area over here and help light up this lady's face with the flames from this side. But I will lower the opacity just a bit. It's going down to about 66%. Alright, I'm going to add another pixel layer, and I'm still on the gradient tool. So again, this time I'm going to come from this flame here and come over in that direction roughly, change to overlay, and again change the color to the same color that I had before, which is FCB991. Or again 252, 185, 145, and then click on the other end and change that to black. So again, I can alter the gradient midpoint. I can even move this around a bit to get a look that I quite like. Yeah, that'll do, I think, on that one. So now her face is lit up better than it was, and we've got a sort of a vignette effect around the outside, and the grass below is well lit from both sets of flames. So it's not perfect, but as I'm doing this, quite quickly, if you can take your time over how you light up your image, or if you're using this image, how you light this one up. Okay, right. The next thing I'm going to zoom in quite close to the scale's eyes. I'm going to add a new pixel layer. I'm going to come to the brush tool, and I'm going to go back to the basic brushes. And colour, I'm going to use the same colour that I used on those flames, which again is FCB 991, or in RGB 252.185.145. And I'm going to reduce the size quite a bit, zoom in a bit more. Now this doesn't look so good on this particular image because our eyes are quite a long way away from the image, but on an image you might be using, you may have a better look, and the eyes may be more visible. So basically what we're doing is going to do a sort of U shape in both eyes, so you're getting like a reflection in her eyes. That didn't go so well. A reflection in both the eyes from the flames. Now if you've only got one flame, you might also want to sort of add a catch light dot. I'm going to put one there and one there, and then change the blend mode to either overlay or soft light overlay. You do lose it quite a bit. I think soft light is a bit more visible. And then just zoom out so you can see that. Let me just turn that on and off. You just sort of add in a bit of extra glow to her eyes. Admittedly, when it's zoomed out a bit, you can't really see it on this particular image, which is a bit unfortunate. Right, now we're coming to the last part of this tutorial. I'm going to add yet another pixel layer, and I'm going to fill this with black. So I need to have black as my foreground color, so I use my keyboard shortcut to do that. And I'm going to come to the flood fill tool and fill that layer with black. I'm then going to come up to the filters tool and come to noise, Berlin noise, and it adds this sort of grey cloud effect. You can set these to however you want, but I'm going to leave this on what I had this set on previously. So my octaves are 5, my zoom is 53.1, and my persistence is 68.9. But like I said, you can do it whatever way you want. And the blend mode in this part, we just leave it on normal, and then click apply. And then we're going to change the overall blend mode of this layer to screen, so only the white parts of that cloud effect are visible. Now to this we are going to add a blur filter, so we come again to filters, blur, motion blur. Now you want the angle on 0, and I'm pushing the radius up to 100, because if you come much below that it just doesn't look quite how we want it to look. So it's about 100, so I click apply. And now to this I'm going to add a layer mask. Now you can either just click layer mask and add a white one, and then you've got quite a lot of areas to remove, or if you hold down the Alt key and click on the layer mask, it will add a black layer mask which will hide that whole effect from that layer. And if we get the paintbrush tool and a white brush, increase the size of that, and I'm going to have the hardness on 0, opacity I'm going to lower down to about 40%, and then I'm just going to paint sort of some smoke effect in and around the flames. Again, how much you add I will leave up to you. It's very subtle, I'm not going to go too mad with it. And that is basically the end of the tutorial. So all you need to do now is to save this, either save it via the save as, and in that way you will save it with all the layers and information intact, or come to export and save it as a jpeg or tiff or whichever format you want to save it in. So thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something from this, and even if you don't use it for making an image using a sword, I think it's well worth going for those flame brushes. They look quite good. So goodbye.